On. Guys, we have a great show today with Dr. Robert Seek. Thank you so much for watching. Today is, what is today? Tuesday, April 8th, 2025 at 2:20 p.m. Eastern Time. I was just telling you beforehand. This is episode 1720 something. I've definitely maxed, and I've been saying it a lot lately, so I'm sure people are just already banging their heads against the wall. Whatever that theorem is, or that like neuroscience, social, anthropological ideas that you can have a limit of around 150 meaningful like relationships before you start to like short circuit. And I
Mhm.
always got really cocky doing this podcast because when I get to episode like 200, 300, 500. I was like, oh, I'm like maintaining a ton of relationships. And I was like, I'm smart. And it's really started to dawn on me in the last year or so that I have absolutely maxed out the credit card that is my brain. The episodes run together, the books run together, even dreams and private conversations run together to where I don't really know what was a show anymore. So I say that to say, it's been a minute since we hung out, probably well over a year. And recently I've just been having guests on whenever my subconscious mind is just like, "Hey, you remember Dr. Seek?" And I'll be like, "Yeah." And I'll be like, "Hit him up." I'm like, "All right." So that's uh that's how the sausage is made right now is I'm just grabbing whatever names pop up on the magic eight ball in my mind. And but yeah, for everybody that doesn't know, because you've been on here several times before talking about like integrated pharmaceuticals. Real quick, just tell everyone like who you are and what you do, and then we'll just wing it.
So, my current career right now, Tommy, it is good to be back, man. It's good to just chat with like-minded people, be on your show. I own a compounding pharmacy. I'm licensed in 49 states, and I got really busy during COVID times. I was one of the pharmacies that would dispense the early treatment medications, hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, despite the fact that I'm in a state that attempted to ban the therapies. That ban was overturned because it was challenged quickly. I never refused to fill a prescription, but this comes on the tail of some other things. You and I talked before because we covered a broad range of topics. I mean, we dove into the woo, man, and I'm a student of it because I listen to shows like yours. And we talked about my good friend and mentor who was an '09 in the Navy. And in 2018, he kind of lit me up on what's really going on in the world. So let's just take the most simplistic
Yeah.
view of that, which is you have a collection of globalists, bankers, corporate oligarchs that have in mind to reshape the world the way that they want to, and they need to take out America and freedom-loving people, and they just want to displace a freedom-minded population with a population that they want to control. And when he told me this in 2018, I said, my business at the time was suffering. I had just ended a 2-year lawsuit against a now former business partner. I got the company, didn't get any of the money back, but we were in shambles. And I said, I read about what an '09 could do. You could commission me right now as a CW01. And he said, yeah, I'm not going to do that. I said, why? He says, you're much more valuable sticking with your business because it's going to be needed. And I'll bring that full circle to like, what am I doing in business right now? He said, your business is going to be needed. But if you wanted me to train you, I'm going to give you a list of books to read. And Dami, you and I exchanged those. You said, hey,
hmm
post me the red pill book list.
I
And
still, dude, I still have it in
it
my.
was not a short list. So I got to be honest with you. He's never going to be on like a podcast or anything like that. I euphemistically refer to him as the boss. That's
Not
right.
September 25th, 2023 made it. Black Laws
Yeah.
Dictionary, The Rise of the Fourth Reich, Operation Gladio, Aviv and the Holocaust, Operation Paperclip, Blowback, The Secret Team, Surprise Kill, Vanish, President Puppetry, Tragedy and Hope, How to Hide an Empire. Yeah,
Yeah, that was
still
just the
have it.
first list. Then there's the second list, and he said, he'll send me scientific articles to read, a lot of stuff that would pertain to infectious disease. So I did spend about 10 years in the biotech industry, mostly clinical research, and it was all infectious disease, virology. Hepatitis C was my primary area of research for a drug that was coming onto market but never made it. The sad fact is, it worked really well, but the side effects were intolerable. But that really trained my mind how to do research. So he said, well, why don't you stick with this? I'll feed you information and then loads of clinical articles. And then we dive into some other stuff too. He'll send me articles on materials sciences, patents that exist, and we've touched on a couple things about, all this about what's really going on in the world, and it's pretty interesting. And most recently, so I always look at my thread, which I glance over at my phone, and I'll send these to you because there's a guy well known in the intelligence circle. Okay. And his name is Charles Hughes. He's got some YouTube videos. And the title of the first one my bud sent to me caught my eye. Said, "Once you know this, every psyop becomes obvious." He just sent these to me yesterday. I didn't even dive in yet, but that would be something
Yeah,
interesting for
send
both,
yeah, send
yeah,
it to
for
me,
both you
please.
and I to study
Absolutely.
and get out there because gosh, I asked him one time. He said, "Why do you spend so much time educating me on all this stuff?" And he said, "Well, you asked for it." And he said, "I got about 20 people like you." And he says, "And how many people do you sometimes jam we call it either the red pill?" Interestingly, I just watched the first Matrix movie this weekend with my two sons and my wife because they hear my wife and I talk about red pilling and the Matrix, and people don't know and they don't want to be unplugged. They're like, What are you talking about?" And we wanted to wait because the older one's 14, the younger one's 10. But we did it this weekend, and now they're just putting it all together. They're like, "Do you really think we could possibly be in something like that?" I said, "Well, maybe not necessarily plugged in, and we're living in a holographic world, but we could be
But the
because
metaphor is perfectly applicable
the
anyway.
metaphor is perfectly
It
applicable.
makes no difference, honestly.
And once you have seen it, it can't be unseen. So this comes on the heels of this guy, Charles Hughes. I just sent the links to your phone because when I get points like that book list, or I get these videos, or I get clinical articles, so I'll tell you what we exchanged this week and what I've been doing for the last year. When he sends this stuff for me to read, I do it. And he'll follow up with me to make sure that so he's not wasting his time. And that's kind of the biggest issue. It's like, you and I could probably agree. It's like, we really need the old mainstream media that is basically the antithesis of the truth. These are narrative holders, and in that second red pill book list, you'll see one of the books listed is called Propaganda. That was written by a guy Edward Bernays.
Hmm.
So that was written in the night, I think it was 1930. And Goebbels, the Nazi
Hmm.
minister of propaganda, Goebbels sought him out because he saw the book. He's like, "Man, we could use this propaganda stuff. We need it. We need the German population to embrace war. We need a few other things." And then, of course, the Nazis were the first ones to experiment with technology that would guide the brain. And what did they experiment with? They changed the international standard for music, the note A, from 432 hertz to 440.
Yeah.
So you think like the movie The Pianist, right? Those were live broadcasts of people playing classical piano music. And this is really radio was the first mass media system that could broadcast, electronically. And by changing the international standard for A from 432 to 440, it created a slight, say, incongruence or disharmony in the human brain. And what their experiments found was that it made the population more anxious and more embracing of war. So sometimes we grouch, right? Like he's like, "Why aren't more Americans waking up?" I said, boss, you're the one who shows me that since the time of Bernays, by the way, was Sigmund Freud's nephew,
Hmm.
really
Yeah.
messed up, twisted, degenerate individuals, right? So
Yeah.
Goebbels said, "Oh, well, we need that because we need," and imagine where we are today. We have today blue light toxicity, screen flicker, 5G, other EMF in the airwaves. We have how many people are saturated with metals, which increase conductance. We have now the stupid jabs. God knows what they did to people, all of the list of things. And then you have on top of that the powerful psychological warfare weapons, like you and I both know, DARPA created Facebook, which was originally called
Life
LifeLog.
log. Yeah. February,
And
whatever the date was, February '04.
Right. I'll send to you another
And
video.
that for sorry for everybody listening, yeah, that's one of the most mind-melting ones is Lifelog about people essentially, what if people surveilled themselves and it was a DARPA program and then it ended and then 24 hours, I mean 24 hours later, not a year later, not the next day, Facebook goes live.
Unbelievable, right? So I have to find this video that I will also send to you because sometimes I'm a junkie and I have to limit when I'm a junkie of information because I got to do my reading assignments. So I don't read things on the iPad all the time. I actually freaking print them, right? Because my bud told me to. He says, I know you've got the red light blocker for everybody. I take my phone and after 5 p.m., I'll do this triple
Yeah.
click of the button and red shift it
Yeah,
because
I got
yeah,
automatically kicks on. Yeah.
yeah, because the blue light is messing people up, man. And then in my world of say functional medicine, so I'm the most anti-drug pharmacist you'll meet. There's actually very little traditional drug dispensing that we do. Everything that we do out of the compounding pharmacy is made in my laboratory. Probably if I pie charted my business, my biggest pie chart would be hormone replacement therapy, testosterone therapy. Uh, Not far after that, and hormone replacement therapy isn't just testosterone; it's also thyroid hormone, and it could be the adrenal hormones, and then different ways to engage weight loss. So, I found pretty much every weight loss patient that I've helped a physician review their chart for, they all have just a little bit of low thyroid. And then you think of, man, all the chlorine that's in our water system, all the weird drinks people drink, it's just poisoning your thyroid. We don't get out in the sun enough. The sunlight really ramps up metabolism. It's extremely important for energy. Sunlight also drives when you don't wear sunglasses or anything that blocks ultraviolet light. You don't have to stare at the sun, but reflection from the ground is enough. The light actually has an impact on enzymes in your eyeballs that begin the reactions to build different neurotransmitters.
Whoa.
So, what if we have a whole society that's blue light toxic, sunlight deprived? You are going to end up with massive numbers of people that need antidepressants.
Hmm.
They're going to look for a dopamine hit, right?
Hmm.
Because the brains, I listened to a really great lecture of a physician that said, look, I got a bucket theory on neurotransmitters. Your brain doesn't make all neurotransmitters at all times. It's got some priorities. Dopamine is the hardest one to make. It's the last to come. So how do people fulfill their dopamine these days? Well, I'll be honest. Sometimes I'm an X addict, and I'm just scanning for that
Oh
next thing on
yeah, yeah,
X,
no,
right?
it absolutely. I think I told you, I keep that on my. But I told you, like every day, and I mean every morning, I download Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, all the that I post the link on from Spotify because
Mm-hmm.
I can post directly from the Spotify app, and then I delete them all because I know if I don't, I don't know how, I don't know when, I'll just find myself. I'm like, what am I doing?
Doom
I'm just,
scrolling,
I'm just like, yeah, no, you're either I'm not, everyone else is happier or the world is so, and you'll find yourself and go, you'll have to put it down and be like, what the fuck was that? Delete it for a couple
right?
days and you're like, why is my mood better? Yeah.
Right.
But it's an easy, it's a low hanging fruit, dopamine.
And there's ways that once educated, and this is my goal, is to not tell you or anybody else, don't use X, don't use Telegram.
No, no, that's not, no, 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 it
But
doesn't mean 100% abstinent. No, they're great tools. They're fucking
yeah,
amazing tools. I keep in touch with cousins and aunts and uncles. It's great.
right.
But just, you got to know when to reel it back in a little bit.
And recognize the psyops. So we should all,
Yes.
your audience and me, should be students of Charles Hughes. To be honest, I haven't even listened to all of his videos yet. My my listen time is back and forth from work, and I have about 20 minutes each way. If I don't have a phone call to listen to whatever, right?
Yeah.
So I'll get the Charles Hughes stuff. I'll start it today because it's on the heels of another video. Now I have to find this one and I'll send it to you too. But it was really interesting. This woman very succinctly put one of the major goals of this lifelog Facebook. And she said that Facebook conducted a study of 700,000 users. Okay, of course, not authorized by the users because you can't use the app unless you agree to every damn thing in their terms and agreements, right? You can't like say, oh, hey, I'll agree to all that. Can you rewrite this just for me? And they're like, well, no, you don't get to use screw
Yeah.
you. You don't get to use the app unless you agree to everything. She said that experiments were done where they would just have bots or individuals conducting the experiment put post negative stuff, just negative. Doesn't matter the topic, but whatever it is was just bad. I don't know. The stock market's crashing. Our food sucks. People are unemployed. Just negative stuff. Or let's say you want to spin that toward one political party or a figure. This negative stuff. And then they also did an experiment. Well, what would happen if we post positive stuff? So people who read the positive stuff, like they forced, they're like, okay, we're going to populate your feed with things that are just generally positive. They would follow the individual Facebook members. What would they post?
Hmm.
And they would post generally positive stuff. So the more positive stuff they saw, the more positive posts they made.
Self-propagation.
Yeah, it was self-propagating. The negative stuff, of course, propagated the negative. But what was really interesting was when they took the groups where they would post the negative stuff, yes, positivity influenced positive posts. Negativity influenced negative posts, but the impact was much greater.
Yeah, it's like much more potent.
Right. And it's like, you know what? If I wanted to do something, and I got to be honest with you, Tommy, I love to be a cynic, man, because I see some memes that are posted that I don't invent that I think these are genius and I'm going to repurpose them for my own. It's like I have friends of mine, right, that are in my field. They don't work for me, don't work in my company. They're in the field. They're like, what do you think about Elon Musk and all this Doge stuff? I'm like, dude, I think it's the greatest thing to ever happen. They're like, what? And you see people, I mean, in Las Vegas, where I live, we had people attacking Tesla cars. I'm like,
Yeah.
what is this insanity? Because there's no backlash against both sides of the aisle. I think there's one party, generally speaking, in my political view, and that the Democrats are just stupid and they steal relentlessly. Some of the Republicans are just much more sneaky, and they end up with all these NGOs funded by U.S. aid, billions and billions and billions in fraud, stolen from the American taxpayer. And here's one guy working for free that's exposing it all, and they're the one he's attacking. That tells me, man, there's some powerful psychological operation there.
No,
Because why
it's
isn't everybody saying that's bullshit?
no, that, like that alone is impressive. When you see people like it's bad, it's crazy, but like the one thing that immediately stuck out to me was the people attacking these cars. They didn't seem like homeless dudes in like a manic psychosis. Like these are people that it's like they're going in a like they're somewhat of like a normal human. It's like they have a job, they have some level of like normality, and they're driven to do something totally insane. I mean, felony charges, get people getting fired. And my first thought was like, it's impressive. Like hats off. They're evil fucks, but I mean, hats off to the people that psyop. That's incredible. The fact that you took like a normal dude who works at whatever, Whole Foods or Office Depot, got a normal life, fucking watches Netflix, has like a nice shirt on. The fact that you got him to take out a key and physically damage someone else's car, a car that was purchased from a company run by a guy that you don't like, because regardless of why you don't like him, regardless of the just it's owned by a CEO that you don't, it's incredible. It is absolutely incredible. And then you can add layers of irony to it. It's an electric car though. Aren't you saving the environment? No, fuck you. It's above all else. I mean, it's evil, it's crazy, it's impressive.
It really is. I take the same attitude, right, and look at it objectively because it's like it can't piss me off because then okay, that has control of my brain.
Oh yeah, no, you've been
But
hijacked, and yeah,
right now I've been hijacked. But take what we first talked about and bring it full circle. We have almost 100 years since the publication of the book Propaganda. We have the Nazis first experimenting with changing the note A from 432 to a 440 hertz because they studied that, well, it'll make the German people a little bit more just like anxious and edgy. So when we say, yeah, we're going to send all your young men to
we're gonna
war
go
and fight
fuck
the
up
world, they're like,
Poland. Let's
yeah,
rock.
even if it's a minor shift, right?
Yeah,
So what do you think they've done in the last 100 years to
and that's
perfect
the
this
and that's
technology?
the other thing. What's a plane from 1930? They're still working with biplanes. Jet engines aren't until the 40s, so you're still looking at kind of a kind of like a canvas wooden structured Wright Flyer Sopwith Camel-esque thing. And then you look what 2025. I mean, the F-22 is 30 years old. So what you
Right.
okay, okay. Oh, let's take that. Let's take a gun. an old Vickers World War I, like hand crank water cooled versus like a subsonic armor piercing with a range finder that automatically calculate. Okay, well, let's take a picture. An old grainy. Maybe if you had some money, you get like a Deguro type silver tinted versus now what I got. I take pictures of the sunset in the evening and I zoom all the way like 25x. I'm looking at trees on mountains miles away. All of these progressions. What in God's name do you think they've done from 1930? Well,
I
we would know
know.
about it. No, you wouldn't.
No, you wouldn't.
Did you know
You're under
about
the
the stealth
spell.
bomber when it came out? No, you knew 40 years later.
Exactly. There's a phrase. I'll send to the boss. I'll send him something like, AI, right? I'm like, I took a course just on AI prompting because I'm like, I'm 53 years old, and this AI stuff is just going to hit the wave of American business in a way. I don't even know what I'm going to use it for, but I better at least take this 6 week prompting
Good.
course.
It's good to be aware.
So, and I had no idea how I was going to use it at the time. But after taking the prompting course, I'll tell you and I used both Chat GPT and I used Grok. And at the end of the course, the last assignment we had, so this was through UNLV, but it's UNLV contracting with some people, and it was a certificate program. There's lots of good courses that are much cheaper. I didn't need the certificate, but hey, UNLV got me with the email advertising. You want to take this course? Sure, signed up, right? The last thing you do is you create your own custom GPT. So that stands for Generative Predictive Transformer, right? Whatever that means. I'm no techie. I don't know how to code, but I know how to articulate something. I'm like, oh, I can create a custom GPT. So I can take this GPT and I can train it on, let's just say, all things functional medicine. And I need this to produce articles on the importance of, certain things that are important to me, detoxification, blue light toxicity. And it can generate this content really rapidly. Then I go through it. It's probably about 85% of exactly how I would write something. So I massage the last 15%. And now I have this content. I'm like, I see what I could use it for, at least for that, because people who are searching for whatever you want to call it, it's known by many different names. Let's just say outside the typical pharmaceutical sick care model, right? People are looking for functional medicine, alternative medicine, health and wellness. Your traditional doctors might call it quackery or voodoo, but whatever. And it's big in my business right now, which is thankfully growing. Because some of the other sectors that are growing is I do a lot for neurologic health. I think there's a lot of misuse of antidepressants, which mess up your brain. I think as antidepressants, actually, if you read deep into the clinical article, so this, I call it deep into the stuff that he sends to me, man, if you're on an antidepressant, you imagine just normal people like you and me that are reading all this negative stuff that's posted on Facebook. Now you put somebody on an antidepressant, they are much more susceptible and much more open to negative suggestion. And look, I would love to do a study. I'd love to have AI. How many people that keyed cars, we know they're crazy, but how many were also on SSRIs? You've probably heard people or seen drops people say, you know what, all these dudes that went and became like mad school shooters, well, how many of them were on
It's
antidepressants?
like almost 100%.
And it was at one time the biggest, if not the second biggest or biggest class of drugs prescribed in the entire country. It's like we're swimming in it. It was so bad that if you drank RO water, like you put an RO filter in your house, fine, you filter out all the drugs. But what if you shower in it?
Well, there's a study in LA, like I think it was like 2010. I just remember reading it in college about like through filtered, not just like dog shit sewer water. I mean like filtered water, nice upscale apartment. And it's like, yeah, not only did it have like copper and molybdenum, it's like it had Prozac in it.
That's right. Prozac, Premarin, which stands for pregnant male urine, so estrogens, right? One of the questions I get is, why do we have so many men in their 30s that are low testosterone? I said, well, if I was an evil SOB, not
Yeah,
only would I,
you'd lower it. That's what they
you
did
would
all throughout
lower
human
it.
history. You don't give them meat, you don't let them work out, you keep them tired.
You
That's what
feed
you
them
do through all of
bugs,
human history. You don't want other alpha men around.
you keep them toxic. So we have Man, thermal register receipts that you grab with your fingers. You're getting a chemical called bisphenol A absorbed across the skin. Food packaging chemicals are messing up people's brain. Then you're showering in warm water. You're breathing the vapor in, which is loaded with birth control pills and Premarin and Prozac and cholesterol drugs, which cause dementia over time. And it's like, I told this to a traditional practicing physician who had recently graduated. He goes to we go to the same jujitsu school. And he's like, oh, well, there is something, a little bit of truth to all that, what you're saying. I'm like, no, 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 dude. It is the truth. You're just unaware yet. And you're working at an urgent care that's more like a primary care. I know what's happening. I said, what do you think about this? The average primary care visit today in standard American medicine is 7.6 minutes. The doctors will tell you it's enough to complain about one problem. They'll write up to 2 prescriptions. They just pop it to the pharmacy. They get to the next room. They don't even look at you. They're like this, Tommy, typing on the electronic health record. They don't even lay their hands on you, let alone look at you and talk to you. Because if they're working, especially for corporate medicine, which so many independent medical school medicine practices went out of business during COVID. So the doctors went to these big I call them doc in a box corporate medicine centers where you've got, I don't know, 20 physicians and you got a big building that you go to and you see the doctors. And it's like, okay, they're cranking out so many more prescriptions. That's what they were designed to do. And it's like, that's not care. That's prescribing people treatment. That's the antithesis of natural medicine. Oh, what you do, Robert, is quackery. I'm like, no, wait a minute. You take a man-made molecule that's never been in the human body before, and then you're jamming it to people, and you're calling me the quack, and because I'm talking about vitamin D, sunshine, vitamin C, amino acids, and stuff like that that'll make you healthy and well. Who's the real practitioner? And I told this guy, Billy was his name, and I said, I want you to think about this. Are you really practicing medicine, or are you an expensive box checker? Meaning he's just clicking boxes on the EHR. The electronic health record will spit out, well, this is the diagnosis. Here's the company approved treatment plan for this diagnosis. There are a couple, pick one. What pharmacy to use? Click, and it's gone.
How quickly until your job's gone, bud?
Dude, I told him this. I said, first, next is going to be telemedicine, is going to be taking over your job. How long after that is it going to be either doctors from India or the Philippines, or AI is going to replace you? There is a bill that is introduced in Congress for AI to do low-level diagnosis and prescribing. That's where it's going to start. And you know who's sponsoring the bill? It's being driven through, if you track all the funds, by CVS Caremark. CVS, one of your largest chain drugstores, and Caremark, which is your largest, what we call PBM, Pharmacy Benefits Manager. So when I told Billy all this, expensive box checker, I didn't see him for 2 months. And then he saw me again. He says, dude, I got to tell you, I have been depressed ever since you told me that, because you're right. I'm not practicing medicine. I was proud to get out of medical school. And I'm a doctor. And I put on the white coat. And he said, I don't do anything. I don't do any thinking. It's all what how can I get into this other stuff? I was like, well, that takes some guts, man. You're going to have to get out there and fight mainstream medicine. You're going to have to advertise to patients, I really am here to help you. But by the way, the stuff I'm going to recommend to help you with is food detoxification, certain supplements not covered by your insurance. And sorry, we live in a terrible economic time at this moment, and people can't afford shit. And it's like, wow, what a nexus that we're in. Now, I'm not hopeless about it all, because the public awakening has begun. I have said it to friends of mine that are still working chain drugstores. I was like, dude, I said, you've got to know what you're doing is garbage. When people are in their 60s and they're picking up 5 or 6 different medications, does that seem like healthcare to you? When you have somebody in their 80s that can't even remember to take all their medications, and they're sitting at home and they have next to their kitchen sink so many bottles that they need to live with one of their sons or daughters to help them get through their meds. Is that life? No, that's not life. And I said, and you're part of that whole system. And I said, well, what do you want me to do about it? I said, at least learn. That's what general message when I'm on a podcast like this. I said, look, once you've peeled back that layer and you looked in and you say, shit, and you make people aware. That's what the Red Pill book list was about. That's what you and I have talked about before. And then from my Admiral Bud, he's got 20 I've got a few friends that I've opened their eyes, like the one doctor you've got an audience. Okay, man, this is our mission right now. And it's working, I think.
No, and it is that is the first step is because like the next, and I wouldn't even say it's totally irrational. You know, the next step is when you start looking at it, because that's great. You're looking at it, you're doing your the next step is predictably, and I think probably understandably, it's apathy. You go, well, what the fuck am I even gonna these corporations? Okay, and that's fine, and you'll go through that, and that's part of the just like going through puberty is like your first breakup. It's all part of the process. So don't despair. But despair is one of the processes. But you go through it, and but you start to read more about it, and when you're at least aware of it, and then you'll go through the process of like talking to people, and they'll all shun you, but then you'll find someone who's kind of clicked in too, and now all of a sudden you don't feel so apathetic. You found a buddy in the foxhole, and you're like, well, you see this shit too? It's like, yeah, dude. You're like, fuck, man, I can't talk about this with everyone. They're like, yeah, no, they think you're crazy. You're like, yeah. You're like, what do we do about it? And they're like, well, hey, fucking you, me and my two buddies, and you're like, oh my god, there's more of us, and they're like, dude, there's tons of us. Then all of a sudden you start going, oh, it's not all for naught. Okay. And you start pivoting forward. And right, so well, what's the step after that and the step after that? Here's the other part. I have no fucking idea. And you don't need to know. You just it's like, March Madness or NFL playoffs. It's survive in advance. You don't need to know what you're doing next game. You got to get to the next game.
Right.
Okay, survive in advance. So you don't need to, well, how are we going to do this? And hey, like slow your roll. You don't need to worry about right now, like how are you going to take down the CIA? Hey, that's another day. Today, we're learning about this and just keep moving forward. And once you do that, it does the apathy kind of evaporates and you start to feel like, oh, you can actually make a change.
You know, I'm kind of a reluctant health coach. So what happens in my business is I will have doctors that say, "Man, I'm opening up a clinic that's going to focus on more like functional medicine." I did a bunch of training through a group called the A4M, American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine. So I have an FMNM after my name, it's letters, Fellow in Metabolic and Nutritional Medicine. But it's all stuff I didn't learn in pharmacy school about nutrition and wellness. And the faculty is just packed with doctors who are traditionally trained doctors from big name universities who have written books like What Your Doctor Won't Tell You About Heart Disease, basically calling bullshit on all the statin drugs. What Your Doctor Won't Tell You About Hypertension, calling bullshit on all the standards that prescribe antihypertensive drugs. There was a gentleman, he's an older guy now, but Steve Sinatra, he's a physician. He was kicked off the CCU, the coronary care unit, because he had these patients coming in. He told his story. It's in his book called Sinatra Solutions. These patients come in, they're basically comatose. They do a angiogram and their pipes are clean. They don't have any blockages. They're on the statin, but they can't feed themselves. They're comatose. So he did a little experiment and said, well, let's get them some nutrition. They can't feed themselves, and let's put just a tiny bit of coenzyme Q10 in an IV bag. Anybody knows that. It's a fat soluble drug. It's very difficult to put it in an IV bag because it's got to be water soluble. But he would put like a milligram or 2 milligrams, which is like nothing. And after a day or two, these people would wake up and start feeding themselves. So he got kicked off. Then got kicked out of the hospital. Then he told the hospital, he had a pathologist friend. He said, hey, these people that follow this pattern, they're admitted to the CCU. They're essentially dying of heart failure. They're on the edge of it. They're comatose. When they do die, I want you to biopsy their myocardium. I want you to take a needle and look at the muscle, the heart muscle, and I want you to tell me how much CoQ10 is in that heart muscle. The most dense concentration of coenzyme Q10 is in the myocardium. We have it in every muscle. We have it throughout all tissues. It's called ubiquinone for a reason because it's ubiquitous. And the coenzyme Q10 content of those patients who died of heart failure was zero. Every patient on a statin drug. And he said, that's what killed them. And I think it was like 4 years ago, the American Heart Association published a big article that said, despite 30 years of prescribing these cholesterol drugs, we've studied the mortality data, and, the cholesterol drugs didn't save anybody's life. They didn't reduce mortality risk from cardiovascular disease at all. But thanks for all the money, because now that all the statin drugs are off patent, we appreciate that. Thank you for all that money. But we figured we'd come out with this study now that we're no longer making money on the branded drugs. And that's why it's like, yeah,
Sorry, guys. Do over. My bad.
yeah, it's just nuts. And it's just so many traditionally trained physicians are just triggered. Oh, high cholesterol, let's prescribe the cholesterol drugs. Yeah, you do have to care about cholesterol a little bit, but not necessarily the total number. You got to look at things like particle size. Small is bad, big is okay. You have to look at, well, it's not the cholesterol numbers that are the big problem. It's just, are they showing markers of vascular inflammation? Inflammation is bad. And if there's one health tip I would give your audience today to make a profound change, there's a couple that have already been embedded in. Reduce blue light, get out in the sun. Okay, number one. Here's the other one that's very powerful. No seed oils. No fucking seed oils. Don't cook in seed oils. Don't buy shit made in sunflower, safflower oil. No seed oils. Avocado oil is like, okay, we're looking at these different oils of content of something we call linoleic acid. Linoleic acid is very inflammatory.
Yeah.
Avocado oil has some, but it's not as bad as, I mean, the worst are your canola oil. So all your fried foods at fast food restaurants, except for now, Steak and Shake, all your fried foods are fried in canola oil.
Doesn't Chick-fil-A, don't they famously do peanut?
It's also very inflammatory.
Uh,
Not as bad. Canola oil is the worst because the Canadian Oil Association would make axle grease for vehicles in the World War II. And they
yeah.
had a huge manufacturing plant. Well, shit.
They
After
have all
World War
this
II, like,
shit. Yeah.
what are we going to do with all this? Right. And it's greasy. It's really heavy. Well, if we pump a bunch of hydrogen through it, hydrogenated oil, it'll flow. We can pour it out of stuff into the fryers and we can fry a bunch of fries in that. Yeah. Okay. So now we have a whole industry built on canola oil that's
So
killing
are these
people.
are these technically World War II fatalities?
Yeah. I mean, it's poison. It's
I wonder if
poisoning
you could make that
fatalities, right?
argument. Like,
It's
actually, yeah.
it's chemical warfare. So, reducing seed oils. And I mean, we're carnivores at our house. If I want to, if I'm carrying an extra 10 or 15 pounds of fat and I want to quickly lose it, like I don't pay a ton of attention to what I eat. I pay some attention. And I'm like, oh, I want to lean out a little bit. I'll just go on the carnivore diet. I will only eat grass-fed beef and pasture-raised organic eggs, nothing else. And I'll do that for 2 weeks, and my waist will just go.
Yeah.
It's rapid. It's rapid. Now, some people stay on that long term, and then there's debate. Now, well, maybe that's not necessarily good for you. Well, but maybe it is because all the disease markers that we use for cardiovascular disease are surprisingly phenomenal when you go on the carnivore, provided you are eating grass-fed beef, providing you're eating good quality eggs. You don't have to eat ribeye all the time. I'm feeding a family of four, so it's a lot of sirloin, it's a lot of roasts. I mean, we buy half a cow from a ranch. I like to support my local ranchers because it's like, well, what can we do? Well, there's a couple things anybody can do. Find a local food co-op, right? Buy your food there. This little, if you can do, I would say to people I do health coaching for, like, man, I'm 150 pounds overweight. What in the hell am I going to do? And they want to go on a magic drug and think that I've got it and they're going to lose weight. I'm like, no, man, that's not the way to do it. It's just not. I don't like to put people on any medicine at all. Maybe a little bit of thyroid medicine. That's it. I don't like to recommend people go on medicine to lose weight. Tell you what, do one thing. What do you eat for breakfast? Oh man, I eat a bowl of cereal. Okay, fuck your cereal and either skip breakfast or make some eggs. I don't have time to cook. Make a bunch of hard-boiled eggs or buy them. They're a little bit expensive. That's your breakfast.
Yeah.
Get your eggs, drive to work, have a piece of fruit, and then they'll tell me, like, hey, it's been a month since I did that. I lost 10 pounds. What's next? I'm like, okay, what kind of job do you have? I talked to a buddy of mine. He's got a desk job. Like, see if your employer will give you a stand-up desk. Change it. And at the top of the hour, every hour, I want you to either sit up from your desk or back away from your desk. And I just want you to do 10 air squats, just 10. Okay. He'll have 80 squats done by the end of the day. He did that his first day. And he said, dude, I couldn't walk for 3 days.
Yeah. That's
He's
fine.
like, I was so freaking sore. I'm like, that's it. But deal with that. Get over the soreness. Now he's up to 25 at the top of the hour, every hour. He's like, dude, I feel stronger. I feel great. And I'm like, okay, you get out for lunch, get out, walk in the sun. Don't take your sunglasses, take them off and walk out in the sun. You get 15 minutes of walking, you get some sun exposure, and you're going to feel better because you and I know, man, when your body and brain has energy, and that's what we're doing. We're just increasing the amount of energy. You're much more likely to be in, I don't want to say a rebellious state,
No,
but
but you're less on your back because I know everything you're saying. I mean, that's from that's why I do intermittent fasting. That's why I do, I tell people that I get and work out. I'm like, start with 5 push-ups a day, sleep, meditation, all that stuff. No, I know exactly what you're saying because it all comes back to like you feel good, you're looking better, your pants fit better, your face looks thinner. You start to have your balls. Even just little
yeah,
things. You're like, that doesn't mean be an aggressive asshole, but you just kind of, you're a little more likely to draw lines around like, no, that's not allowed. That behavior's not allowed. Or hey, I'm not here on the weekends. I'll see you on Monday. Like, don't call me. And then that starts to bleed into like you're reading about shit, and all of a sudden you're like, wait, who's blocking? Who's censoring me on Twitter? It's probably some fat fuck with purple hair who chopped their genitals off. You're like, that's why I'm not expressing my thoughts.
yeah,
You start to your balls drop. It's like a
right,
second puberty. You start to feel 18 again. You're like, wait, Anthony Fauci is telling me I can't work and provide for my family. Fuck this cocksucker. Like,
right,
you start to stand up a little more straight and you're like, all right, wait, why am I on my back foot? Why am I always reacting to everything? Like, how come I can't, have your own little fiefdom? I mean, your fiefdom might be your apartment. Your kingdom might be your family. That's fucking enough. Own it,
exactly.
defend it, and you all of a sudden you start to feel like less of a pussy. You're like, hey, fuck that. No, 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 no. We're not doing that. You were late to the show. You never give me a heads up call. You're not coming on the show,
Mm-hmm.
respectfully. But hey, just little things like that. And then also, I also find it works with like ownership. I find with myself, I'll start to be like, I'm making up excuses. I didn't show up to the show, and that was extremely rude to you as the guest. There are no excuses. I apologize. Like you start to own yourself a little bit more. It's all this, it's just this slow progression into, I mean, I know it sounds like but a better existence, a more meaningful existence.
I'll tell you something that's true and at the same time funny. I like to entertain my friends and your audience at the same time that we're imparting what I think is useful information.
Sure.
So I have a classmate of mine still living in Pennsylvania. He lost his job. Thank God he chose life because he refused to get the jab. And he said, "No, I'm not doing that." They're like, "Well," and he had 20 years with the company, and they said, "Well, we're going to send you an early retirement." And I said, "Dude, don't sign all the fucking documents that they want you to sign because you are going to be able to come back after them later with legal recourse, but not if you sign. I
Yeah.
will never contest." And he did. He signed
Yeah.
everything because he was afraid. I said, "All right, I get it. You got to provide for yourself and you got to provide for, your three kids and wife. And I get it." So we talked later. He's like, "Man," he says, "my new job that I got," he said, I'm working in a hospital system and I am surrounded by people who are just unaware. I send him clinical shit all the time to read, which is, of course, one of the latest ones I just sent him. He said, "I'm posting this on the health system website today, where I get to post." And what was it about? The flu vaccination. The most recent flu vaccination makes it more likely for you to get the flu. And it was like a big deal to him. I'm like, "Yeah, but dude, this is not new information. Here's a 2017, 2018 analysis. The Navy did its own analysis. There's something called the Hoskins effect, which is named after a British researcher named T.W. Hoskins. If you get a vaccine, certain things, you get a vaccine, you're actually more likely to get the damn disease that you were vaccinated against. And there's a reason that occurs because of the way the antigen that you want your immune system to generate a response to, the way the immune system generates it. It's like, okay, I see that. I'm going to block that anytime it comes into the body. But, viruses change slightly over time, but it doesn't see the variants. It doesn't see the variants. So you're susceptible to the variants. And I said, "Look, now you have two data points published in scientific journals that say you get the flu vaccine, you're more likely to get the flu." And he says, I get it. But I got him out of despair mode. I said, "You got to stop going into despair mode." And he said, "How do I do that, man?" I said, "Listen, make these incremental changes. You stand all day. I don't care if anybody makes fun of you. Do 10 squats, do 25 squats at the top of the hour, every hour. Just get stronger. You'll be stronger." I said, "And I want you to meditate." This is where I get to. He said, "Meditate." I said, "Okay." And I'm on the phone with him in the car. And I said, we're going to meditate together right now. He says,
Hmm.
okay. So now imagine all the bullshit that you got to deal with. Your stupid communist supervisor, your hospital system that berated you because you won't get the vaccine. And they wanted him as a pharmacist to inject the vaccine. He said, I'm not doing that. And they put the pressure on him. He says, you can't. It was really slick because he said, I tell you what, uh, here's the 28 pages, single space typed of all the potential adverse events that occur from the Pfizer vaccine. If you let me read every single one of these pages word for word to somebody, then I'll consider giving the vaccine. They said, no, you don't have to do that. He said, don't we have to give informed consent? Well, technically, no. And he's like, no, you do. I'm not putting myself on the line for that. And he's like going into despair mode. I said, we're going to meditate right now, bud. He said, how are we going to do that? I said, imagine all this BS that you're dealing with, right? Just imagine it. You can't close your eyes. You're driving too. You just imagine it. Take a deep breath, and you've got all the psyops on mainstream news media, and you've got your friends that are ridiculing you. A lot of his friends are doctors and pharmacists, and he's an outlier because he doesn't believe in the mainstream, prevailing theories about COVID and the vaccines. And I said, you imagine all that. Now take it, pile it all up, stack it all up, and think about it. He said, yeah. I said, now take a deep breath. He says, yes. I said, repeat after me. He says, okay, what? I said, fuck that. He said, what? I said, fuck that. And I said, this is meditation. I said, it's called fuck that meditation. Yes, this is meditation that you can do. He's like, yeah, fuck that. You're right. He said, I can deal. They can throw stuff at me all day long and pick on me, and I don't care. I said, that's right. I said, you start to develop a backbone, and maybe there will be one or two others that you inspire to do the same.
Hmm.
Mission complete. At the very least, you've protected yourself. Didn't allow his kids to get vaccinated either. The wife berated him. They got a divorce a while ago, but the wife just like, what's wrong with you? Like there's something wrong. He's like, the kids and I are fine. And she said, why won't you let them get vaccinated? Because both parents have to agree to vaccinate the kids. They signed that, and he said, and the kids didn't want it, because he had talked to them. She says, I don't understand why they don't listen to me and they're listening to you. He says, well, they're old enough to make up their own minds. I gave them information, you gave them information. They decided for themselves. I don't understand why you just don't advocate for them to get it. He says, well, I've shown you all the reasons why. Yeah, that's not true. And it's like the ex-wife, all those people he works with, dude, sometimes I am so underwhelmed by the lack of awakening in healthcare because I swim in it. There's some that are outliers. I subscribe to some really good Substacks that I read. There's William Mackus out of Canada.
I've had him on
Uh,
before, yeah.
yeah, hey, he's a great guy.
Yeah.
There's a couple Substacks. I don't even know their names. There's the second smartest guy in the room, a Midwestern doctor. Of course, Pierre, Corey, Paul Merrick have been out there in the fight. Ryan Cole, and it's like, yeah, those are leaders. Those are leaders, and they're swimming in the lake, getting bitten by all the mean fish that are in healthcare, saying you guys are just foolish, right? But they're stalwarts, and they're convinced that what they're doing, and they're correct. What they're doing is the right thing for people, and that's what it comes down to. Your audience, you and I talking, more people that practice, fuck that medication, and meditation, fuck that meditation, and kind of get this out because it will start to change the thinking of others. But you tell me, man, in your sphere, in your regular living, and you're running this show all the time, how do you feel about the pace of general awakening in America? In my opinion, it is happening, but sometimes I'm like, why isn't it faster? Why aren't there more people waking up going, fuck that? What do you think?
I'm 34. I was reading into conspiracies at like age 15. I didn't go to prom. I was at home reading Legacy of Ashes about the CIA. I've always just been into this shit. I've been doing the podcast for 5 years. So I've been in like the conspiracy world for roughly 2 decades and the podcast world for half a decade. It was speeding up faster by the time I started the podcast than I had ever seen it. Even within the life of the podcast, I would say it is accelerating at a pace that far has exceeded, outpaced my most optimistic hopes even 5 years ago. It's still frustrating. That's good. It's in the same way that it's good to be frustrated that you can't curl 50 pounds because that's how you move forward. It doesn't mean that it's bad that you can only do 45, but it's good to be hungry and move forward. So it's good to be, not content and, like you said, what was the word you used? Not unimpressed, whatever the
Un,
fuck.
yeah, underwhelmed,
Underwhelmed.
underwhelmed by the lack of
It's good to
awakening.
be underwhelmed because that's what pushes forward. But to take you know, a second out and look at it objectively, no, I'm not underwhelmed. It's speeding up at a pace that is kind of insane to me. It just in my and who knows, what biases I have by being kind of in the sphere of doing shows every day. It might be that I'm seeing these people at a much higher rate than most people are, so maybe I don't have uh an accurate analysis of the general rate. But in terms of like just the ambient discussion on and off shows with the vast number of people I do interact with through this show, who all are from different fields. It's not just medicine, right? No, I would say it's fucking insane right now. Like don't despair. Keep pushing. I would say don't despair. Now, when is it gonna break? I have no idea. I think what we're seeing is like kind of like a once in several centuries, if not millennial shift. So this could be something that takes 50 years. It might take 5 months. I have no idea. But it's speeding up and it's feeding on itself and it's dissolving the container that it's within. It's like an acid that's too strong for the beaker. I'm very optimistic. I'm
I'm glad to
very,
hear you say that
very
because
optimistic. And this is
you've
from
got
someone
a
who throughout the podcast has been like, man, this thing's fucked. I'm going to get no knocked by the FBI at any minute. Like, so I'm saying that as someone that was like fully prepared to be shot in the face and like made my peace with God. Like,
Mhm.
no, it's we're gonna win.
Well, I'm glad to hear that because your bucket, your sphere, that's your audience and the people you interact with for making this show is a little bit different from most of the field that I'm surrounded by because I'm just astounded. Like people that are still entrenched in regular traditional allopathic medicine that
You,
haven't woken up to any of the main points that I said. There are a few, but they're so afraid because what they get, like my friend Billy, what he gets is even his own wife, also a physician. Like, man, if I came out and told everybody I believed this stuff that you said about how we're practicing medicine, how we shouldn't be prescribing antidepressants to kids, how we should be talking about, you know, real ways to make them healthy rather than just jamming drugs, why we should be listening to people instead of a 7.6 minute expensive box checker, electronic health record, primary care visit. He says, dude, he says, I'd lose my job. I would lose a lot of friends. And I'm afraid. I said, well, then why don't you start taking jujitsu class? Because my jujitsu class guys, okay, they're your audience. They are awakening fast, except for the one doctor. But he was bothered. This is a different doctor. It's a different guy. He said, "Man, I was bothered for 2 months by what you said, but you're right." But he's in the same thing. He's like, "Man, I stick my neck out in the field. It's like the crab basket effect. I try to get out of that basket of the way of thinking, and they just pull me back in. You're a fool. You're an idiot. Who are you listening to? This is not convention. This is not science." Yes, it is. You got to break that mold, man. I think we have a ways to go in the field of medicine, but when that breaks, there are many doctors that are out there breaking it. There's Mary Tyler Bowden has had some really good podcasts. There's a lot of hope for what RFK Jr. is going to do with the Department of Health and Human Services. I mean, come on, stop spraying our food with toxins, stop spraying our skies with garbage. Let's have a conversation about vaccines that is the right conversation. And gosh, we'll start to make some changes. And you're right, a lot of will take 20, 50 years to manifest because imagine this. The American Academy of Pediatrics vaccination schedule is so many doses. It's ridiculous. And it's been published in numerous studies, probably over 100. The link between vaccines and autism spectrum disorders. I mean, the epidemiologic evidence is abundantly clear. And what's most difficult to do in clinical research is to take different ways that you look at a certain issue, different groups of people, but keep coming up with the same answer, keep reproducing the results. It's not just one study that showed, well, this caused the problem. Yeah, well, that's just one study. Well, this study was in a different group of people. It showed the same problem. And here's this one, and this one, and this one. And they all showed the same things. They all showed that we reproduce these results no matter what we do. It's like you should start to take a look at that American Academy of Pediatrics vaccination schedule. Oh, and by the way, you're a pediatrician. I already know over 60% of the gross revenue at your pediatric practice is vaccination programs. If you didn't have a vaccination program like you did, your practice wouldn't survive. Kids wouldn't get sick. And what are you treating the rest of the time? Well, I'm treating mostly asthma, allergies, and skin conditions. I said, well, which are caused by what? Which are immunologic disruptions that manifest that way. And what are the prime drivers? Here's another set of articles. I don't know, about 80 of those that show how vaccines are going to give rise to asthma, allergies, and skin problems. Start some thinking. And then you have a pediatrician that might realize that, but what are they going to do when they go back to work? When those brave people start to make the changes, and you're going to have parents that are doing it too. And everybody wants to protect their children. When that mindset changes in a bigger way, it has changed. I'll agree with that. But when it changes in a bigger way, that parents start to go, "Hey, fuck that! I'm not jamming my kids with all this shit. I'm just not doing it." Oh man, we're going to start to see change then. And I challenged the one guy. I said, "You're a pediatrician. You are going to have to learn how to keep kids healthy, or you're going to have to learn another field of medicine because happy kids, dude, if you were a pediatrician in an Amish community and you only saw kids, you'd never do anything. You wouldn't be busy. You wouldn't have a single patient because none of them are sick. Go find something else to do. Maybe you should ask the Amish how to raise chickens. I'd love to raise chickens, Tommy. I live on a postage stamp yard. I can't really have it, but it's like, man, chickens are a gateway drug, man. You get the chickens going, you make your own eggs. You're like, why do these taste different than these traditional store bought eggs? And it's like, and they're just free. They come right out of the ass of the chicken. I feed them chicken scraps and they give me eggs. Man, what else has commercial agriculture lied to me
I've
about?
got a couple
Right?
friends that have their own chickens, and yeah, no, it's like a gateway drug to just independence. They start with that, and next thing you know, it's yeah, they're out in the middle of nowhere. They own well water. They have belt-fed machine guns. I'm like, yeah, no, they're these are good people. What I was gonna say is well, one, they will go back to their job, and like everyone, you'll have your, I would go back to YouTube and be like, "Fuck, maybe I shouldn't talk about this because I'm gonna get." You go through those own personal tribulations, and then that's where you see what you're worth. That's where God sees what you're worth. Are you worth your salt? Do you have your balls? And it's okay if you don't immediately do it the first time. It's okay to mull it over and finally go, "Yeah, you know what? This is not good." And then you go, man, how am I going to feel on my deathbed? And then you go, I get this, I have to do the right thing. And I think most people are good and they do eventually find their balls and do it. What I was going to say about, you're in the medical field, so you see specifically that. If I have on an author, I have people that they're specifically in like the author publishing world. Just being in this show, I kind of get these glances into all these different pieces of the pie chart just because of like what I get to do. So it's almost like talking to representatives from each state. I'm not hyper fixated on Georgia. It's like I'm in DC. I get to talk to people from every single state. What I would say is just from and again, this is as a person who is traditionally throughout the show cynical and like not content with the rate things are going. I would say right now it feels like you're in the trenches of like one battlefield, of like one island, and I'm like in the Pentagon. And I get it from your point of view. You're like, man, fuck this. We're not progressing up the hill on Iwo Jima. But if I ever bring you into the Pentagon, I'd be like, no, dude, we're destroying this thing. We got this thing called the A bomb coming. I have it on confidential information. Nazis are already done. They're fucking over. The Soviets are closing in. I don't doubt that what you're seeing is hell on Iwo Jima. We're gonna fucking win. It might take a couple months, I don't know, but we're gonna fucking win. That's kind of how I feel. Is just getting to talk to people I mean, truly, from astronauts to fucking Delta Force to everything in between. The general vibe, the general mood, the morale is that it's accelerating, and not only that, it's that it's accelerating, and that even if we lose, we're still. That's another thing that I see now. Is it used to be like, well, are we gonna win? Now there's just this sort of like either we win or they kill us. Fuck off. Like I don't care anymore.
That's right.
There's kind of that. There's no
That's
more
right.
like well, should we take this gamble? It's a lot of like, yeah, we're gonna win and the world's gonna be better, or they're gonna kill us in camps. Fuck these pedophiles. Like that, there's kind of
Exactly.
that. Like, all right, well then shoot me, do it. I
Bring
see
it.
that a lot now, which is
Yeah.
very, very optimistic.
Well, as much disappointment as I have expressed in your general allopathic medicine, and I've mentioned a few names that stand out, there are more. And I'll tell you what's been going on really the last 6 months. This has unfortunately grown, but what's happened in my business. So there's something I can get into and look at the data. It's the CDC when they get their epidemiologic data, like what diseases are occurring, what's killing people, that data is cold. They sift through that data and they take out a lot of shit so the people don't make logical conclusions. But DMED, which is the Defense Medica Epidemiologic Database, that information is not cold. So what are we looking at? Let's just talk about one thing since we mentioned MACUS, right? We're talking about cancers, and we're talking about the fact that for over 50 years, the typical cancer rate in America was about 2% of the population. And now it's fast approaching 6%. What's more disturbing is if you look at the age distribution, how old is a patient when they are diagnosed with cancer? It's a disease that really starts at around 65 and it increases in risk rate with each decade of life. People who are 85 are much more likely to have a cancer than people who are 65, who are much more likely than people who are 35, right? But now what's disturbing is you look at the number of new cancer diagnoses since the introduction of the jabs, and it's a younger population than ever before. 9 million kids have received at least one COVID shot. And the types of cancers that we're seeing emerging are primarily solid tumor cancers, which is something that Tulane University over 20 years ago was going to publish landmark of what they saw. Their surgeons taking out tumors said, you know what? We looked at these tumors under microscopes. 100% of these tumors showed parasites. Some of the tumors not only showed parasites, but they also showed fungus in the tumors. Are we approaching cancer the wrong way? Well, then, you've got people from the drug companies, Ortho, Bayer, Merck, that visited them and said, hey guys, we don't really want you to publish this shit. We send to the university a lot of money in grants for cancer research. That keeps you alive in your research fellows and keeps the university flush with cash. So tell you what, don't publish this. We're going to send you a lot more money in grants. Well, you've got physicians that are out. I didn't invent this information. I didn't discover it. You have physicians in the cancer field that have come out and said, that's what really happened. And there's repurposed protocols that do use the anti-parasitic drugs like ivermectin, fenbendazole, which seems to work pretty well, but is not approved in the United States to be used in humans. So I can't have fenbendazole in the pharmacy. I can't dispense it. We use something called mebendazole instead. William Macus has put on his Substack a source of fenbendazole that he likes. You have to get that stuff third-party validated, but lo and behold, just on Macus's Substack, I like his a lot because I go through all kinds of case studies. So not only do we have more people diagnosed with cancer than ever before, younger ages than ever before, the number of people that are already stage 4, which means that original cancer has already started to spread. They're stage 4. The number of people stage 4 at diagnosis is alarming. I talked with one forward-thinking former cancer surgeon. This person doesn't want their name out there just yet. They're doing an observational study. And when that study comes out, they're going to show, hey, we use up to 6 different medications repurposed to treat these types of cancers. And the results have been phenomenal. So when those results get published, and they will, that's going to be a watershed event. Dr. Pierre Corey has done some research too, but I think there's a couple ways his organization used to be called FLCCC, Frontline COVID. Now it's changed its name. I think they had a little bit of infiltration there. I'm not sure. I don't go to their meetings, but I'm just looking at the information that's coming out. But in my own personal sphere, I just want everybody in the audience to just think, like in your own personal sphere in your lifetime, everybody's had somebody that has been diagnosed with a cancer. Gosh, in my own personal sphere, just in the last few years, just people that I know, either people I know, people I'm friends with, or family members that have gotten cancers, it's alarming. And that's a single person sampling, right? Like, wait a minute. I'm not just
And,
hearing about it more because people are talking about it. I'm hearing about it more because it's
in my
occurring more.
no, in my own life. Yeah. And I'm relatively young, 34. Yeah, no, in my own life. It's not anecdote. It's not, well, they're saying on Twitter. No, it's in my own life. Like, astonishing.
Yeah.
Like, didn't get better.
Yeah.
Dead.
Yeah, that's true. The good news is, there are treatments that we do know about. There have been a number of studies published of how effective they are at cancers, and have been for years. And now the interest in it, the brave practitioners who have said, you know what, mainstream medicine and my medical boards are probably going to sling arrows at me to tell me I shouldn't be writing these drugs for cancer. But you know what? It's legal in every state and legal federally to do what's called off label prescribing. A medical practitioner can prescribe a drug for any purpose that practitioner deems appropriate. Uh, One of the things I used AI for, I had a particular state send me a grouch letter. We don't want you sending ivermectin to patients in our state anymore. Okay, well, where's your statutory authority? I've looked, I could upload all the statutes into ChatGPT and ask it questions. So there's no statute that gives the pharmacy board that authority. And if they did have that authority, it would have to be universal. They would have to tell every single New Mexico licensee, you can't do this anymore. So that's de facto making the pharmacy prohibit the practice of medicine, which is itself, denial of therapy is the practice of medicine. There have been pharmacy boards and medical boards sued because they denied therapy. No, you can't use it for that. Well, who are you? The practitioner has the freedom to prescribe whatever they think is appropriate for the patient. And so sadly, yes, the cancer rates have gone up. But on the positive side, I ran into some networks, not just one or two cowboy physicians, but networks of physicians who have said, look, facts are stubborn things. The data shows this. This is the cause. These drugs work. We're prescribing the drugs. That's what we do for patients to make them well. They grew balls. And they said, you know what? Medical boards and pharmacy boards can go ahead. The FDA can go ahead and sling arrows at us. Bring it. We're doing it anyway because we're saving patients. And when that information comes out, there's probably multiple studies ongoing. I'm only familiar with one, this observational study. Well, we took a group of patients with cancer. We know what's going to happen because we have what we call historical controls. Well, we know what happens with cancer patients that because we've known it for 50 years, even if you do treat them with chemotherapy and radiation. But we're using this repurposed protocol, and look how much better our results are against historical controls. Because you'll have some white lab coat wearing, well, you didn't really have a legitimate control arm. We don't need a legitimate control arm. Your legitimate control arm is your history. What happens to these patients, whether they're treated or not with traditional we're using this therapy and the outcomes are so much better. How can you refute that? And the biggest thing, the last point I'll leave, because I'll have discussions. I don't have arguments anymore, but I have discussions with doctors that ask me, why are you doing this? Well, doc, here's why. Here's the data. Here's the information. Here's the results. Here's some case studies. But let me ask you this, doc. What's the downside? What's the downside of these drugs? You have drugs like, well, ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine that have been on the market for over 60 years. They've been used in the very young and the very old that have very, very little published ever in the FDA adverse drug event reporting database. I mean, my God, four men shared the Nobel Prize in Science and Medicine in 2015 for their work on
River
ivermectin in
blindness.
humans.
Yeah.
Not just river blindness, beyond this impact on human health in general. So what's the downside? This isn't super toxic stuff like remdesivir that, we knew before remdesivir was used, it caused multi-organ dysfunction in 65% of patients. Didn't work against the virus, but I talked to one hospitalist and she said, well, that's all we had. I'm like, okay, but why didn't you go to the hospital CEO and say, no, I'm the chief of this department. I want to use these drugs. Well, they told me I couldn't. Okay, well, you got a pretty good paying job and you wanted to preserve it. You got a prestigious title, but what did you do for your patients? She'll probably, I hope she thinks about that the rest of her life. Well, we only had remdesivir. I said, okay, but it was known in advance. Remdesivir was never approved by the FDA because it didn't meet the criteria, because it harmed patients, but repurposed under the EUA, emergency use authorization. Well, that didn't matter, makes you not liable for using it because it's under the PrEP Act and under emergency use authorization. But the data showed that it caused multi-organ dysfunction, primarily kidney failure, in 65% of patients. And you decided to go with that. She got up from the table. It was lunchtime during a medical meeting, and she got up from the table, and I'm like, okay, she probably hates my guts now, but It wasn't personal. It was just to make her think. And I'm sorry if she doesn't like the way it came down. She was the one in charge. She was the one in charge of those patients' lives and decided to not fight the hospital administration because, well, remdesivir would cost the hospital about $280. They would get reimbursed from Medicare, 2,800. They'd get reimbursed from private insurance, 3,200 per dose. Per
That's
dose.
that's some seductive ROI.
Right? And you got a lot of hospitals. I don't know, are they doing well financially? But here's a cash cow that's coming in. Oh, jam them on a ventilator.
Well, and then
We can charge a few $1,000s a day for that. Give them the remdesivir. We can make a huge profit on that. Every dose is hugely profitable. That's our protocol. Go to work, doc. You go. No, don't do any thinking. Don't do what's right for the patient. Hey, we need to make money. We're a for-profit hospital. Go do that. Now, when patients realize all this, when they go research and say whether or not this guy, Robert Seik, was right, and they dig deep into it and say, money, I had friends or family members that go through this shit. And they went on remdesivir. They got harmed. One's got kidney damage right now. Some people died. Man, people died on the ventilator. What the hell were they doing? I saw one video of a guy chasing down a physician in Australia that vaccinated and subsequently one of his family members vaccinated one of this guy's family members, and that family member died, and he was chasing down the doctor saying, you did this, you should have known better. Well, it's going to be time, and my challenge is to the medical profession in general is do some more research, wake up. None of the stuff I told you is my own invention. It's based on published clinical literature. It's based on experience of prescribing physicians that, yes, use my pharmacy, but others that I'm aware of. What are you going to do? Because now that I've said this and you look into it and you learn the information is true, you're responsible for it. Okay. So do your awakening in this profession and get out there and start doing the right things. Because unfortunately, unless there's some treatments that are going to come available that I do not yet know about, we're going to face some significant challenges. So look at just look at the cancer challenge right now. I can tell you the results from patients that start the repurposed drug protocol, and I'm not mentioning all the names frequently because I know you might put this up on YouTube, but everybody knows what I'm talking about. Read the William Mackus Substack, and you'll know exactly what I'm saying. And it's like, okay, that's the challenge. That's the push. And thankfully, I ran into networks of doctors who have said, hey, I'm glad your pharmacy has this stuff. And you're not going to be one of those pharmacists like at the chain drugstores that call me up and say, hey, doctor, I'm not dispensing this because I think it's for cancer. I think it's for COVID. And I'm making the decision that they can't have it. Those pharmacists are in trouble. They denied therapy. That is the practice of medicine. All a pharmacist is responsible for doing is making sure that the patient gets the medication the practitioner prescribed and it's safe. There's no major drug interaction. There's no major contraindication. The pharmacist should not make a treatment judgment, right? Should just dispense. And those that made those treatment judgments, hey, colleagues, wrong move, man. Wrong move. I don't want to play doctor. I do a lot of consulting. So when a physician calls me up and says, Robert, how do I dose this drug for this particular use? Have you seen it used before? Can you show me some data? Okay, I've taken some time to learn and read. Of course, I've got the boss, I've got my admiral bud, shoving it. Read this, know it. You'll be educated. That way you can educate other providers. And I said, don't just take my word for it. Go read the data, read the information, then make your decision. You're the one ultimately responsible. You're putting pen to paper. See, you're sending the prescription in. It's your patient. What are you going to do? The awakening that's occurred, really, I can just tell you in the last 2 weeks, probably 50 physicians that have said, hey, we're on this. Can you give us a little bit of guidance? How do you recommend dosing this? Oh, this patient, these drugs are metabolized through the kidneys. Do I dose them the same way? I'd recommend, you go a little bit lower on the dose. Their kidneys aren't going to get rid of it as fast. So we don't need to go as high. Somebody's really healthy but they're heavy. A lot of these are weight-based dose drugs. I want you to dose here. The patient weighs this. Here's your 2 options. Here's a low dose protocol. Here's a high dose protocol. And you can scale up over time. I can make you custom capsules so they can start with 1 capsule and eventually work up to 2 or 4 per day so that you get the right dose. Monitor for side effects. Titrate from there. See how they respond. Call me back in 3 months and let me know if their tumor shrank. Let me know if their cancer markers went down. And that's occurring. It is occurring. And I'm glad to see it.
And we'll wrap up with this. What I was gonna say is, part of the whole, getting confidence and getting your balls back, and then one of the things, because once you start improving every other aspect of your life, sleep, diet, blah blah blah, you do inevitably lead to, on your own, with the help of others, to a form of prayer and or meditation. It just kind of seems to be a natural part where people are like, well, everything, I'm improving everything else, you know, from making my bed to eating healthy to getting sleep to meditation eventually pops up. What meditation and prayer do, aside from giving you some peace, a little more confidence in your actions, you get quiet with the part of you that is at the base of it, the I, the subjective self. And whether you maybe you believe in God, maybe you don't, you do start to get to a point of where you know there's a part of you that you can't lie to. And you know eventually you will die. And if you don't die, you got however many decades left. And once you sit with that part every day, which you'll start doing is because once you're doing all the other good stuff, you do it a lot more. It's not like you have once every couple of years. You start to see that part of you every day, that quietness. You do eventually, and it's a strong thing. You go, can I live with myself if I don't act? And if I can live with myself, is this going to eat at me every single part of my life, every second of every day? Maybe I won't meditate anymore. Well, no, because you want to keep doing the self improvement thing. Eventually, you kind of get to that part where you go, I don't think I can sleep well at night, man. And once you start to improve every other aspect of your life, the one part that you don't improve, if you clean your apartment and you keep it great, but just one thing you never do, I don't know, you never clean the mirror in your, bathroom, your bedroom bathroom. There's like toothpaste spittle on it. Eventually, if everything else in the apartment's just squeaky clean, smells good, and every day you go and look in that mirror and there's fingerprints on it, there's just like spit, there's like a fucking hair from shaving. Eventually, you can be like, this just looks like shit now because everything else looks so good. That's where the consciousness comes in. You go, I've got like 8 pack abs now. I can run a mile. I'm doing fucking carnivore. I'm, getting sunlight. I'm doing all the enzymes and everything. You go, but every day I'm just prescribing these pills that I know are fucking killing people. Eventually, then they break out of it. So it's through one way or another people come to the light. And that's what I would say is don't despair. It's okay to be impatient, but it's going in the right direction. Um, but dog, for right now, we gotta wrap it up because I actually have to get on a phone call in a
All right,
second.
man. Hey, you want to
I'm
do
an
this
idiot.
any other time? I'm glad you pinged me. We can do this. We can do this another time. You want to catch up
Yeah, brother.
in 2 or 3 months? Let's do it.
Yeah.
I hope
Yeah.
your audience enjoyed the show.
Yeah. No, they will. Who cares if they don't? I enjoy it. That's more important. If I don't ping you, man, ping me. That's what I tell people is it's just me. I have no secretary. I have no assistant. So if somebody doesn't hear from me, it's not like I'm done with that guy. I am just juggling 19,000 different guests and emails, and it's just out of my mind. If you didn't hear from me, ping me, and we'll schedule something.
You got it, Tommy. Hey, man, I really appreciate it. I'm
Yeah.
so thankful for
No.
shows like
Yeah.
yours and audiences like yours. I mean, it is changing the world without a doubt. And we're headed the right direction. Meditation, prayer, taking the right steps to make yourself stronger. Incremental changes have a big impact. Like the Japanese philosophy, Kaizen, right? Incremental improvement, a 1% improvement. I train martial arts. I suck at jujitsu right now, right? But I've been training Kempo for 16 years. But I keep showing up to jujitsu class because you know what? I'm better this week than I was last week. Only a little bit. But what's it going to be a year from now? Another 52 weeks. You know, I'm gonna be even better. So it's that perseverance, and it's a hard challenge. I got guys that are 20 years younger than me. They're a lot more flexible and they're faster, but okay, that gives me a reason to stay fit and mobile and just train. And the tribe that I found, luckily real close to my house, everybody is just so eager to support and train everybody else. I don't go to an ass kicking gym. Like, oh, I can't wait to show you stupid white belt that I'm boss, right? I'm a blue belt. People kicked my ass when I'm a white belt. I'm going to kick your butt. No, nobody is like that. And the leader, point I'm getting to is you're this audience's leader. You're a focal point that you drive a lot of different sources of information through to your audience. The leader has made the tribe that way. So I like to be a part of it, Tommy. I'm happy. So I will ping you in about 2 months. We'll get
Yeah.
on another show and we'll keep it going.
Oh yeah, brother. No, it's always a pleasure. It was a great talk. And yeah, dude, I'll text you. The Spotify will be up today. It'll probably be on Rumble tomorrow. I'll text it to you and Yeah, till next time, dude. Thank you so much for your time.
Okay, you got it. Be
All
well,
right,
Tommy.
brother. Thank you.